Up next, I want to talk more about Rings of Power. Yes, that's right, folks. Rings of Power is all over YouTube, and it's typically just kind of a hate march where everyone's like, yeah, I hate Rings of Power. Let me watch more YouTube videos about why it sucks. And indubitably, Rings of Power sucked, folks, okay? I go on YouTube and I get reassured that the show was awful, but then I go in real life at work and home and I start talking about this and people are like, oh, you thought Rings of Power was bad? That's weird. Rings of Power was good to me. Why was it bad to you? And then I kind of just stop like a deer in headlights and I'm like, oh, well, if Rings of Power was good according to you, then maybe I need to reevaluate my perspective. So then I go back and I think about it and I'm like, no, it's definitely garbage. It's really expensive. I mean, if they told me they spent $1 million an episode, okay, I get it. You know, there wasn't really anything too dramatic that you couldn't buy at, you know, these $100 CGI programs. And let's face it, guys, that money was swindled. So this got me thinking about Rings of Power. What is it that is so bad? Well, primarily Galadriel was they had a whole plot and they just forced Galadriel's character in the middle of that entire plot. If you look back at Lord of the Rings, Frodo, you could say, was the main character of the entire series of Lord of the Rings, especially the Fellowship of the Ring. But as it progressed, it equally distributed the weight of character development across the entire world. This is one reason why we like Gandalf so much, because he was a heavy character in the whole trilogy. And so when you have Rings of Power, you have Galadriel basically hyperimposed on every single scene that she needs to be involved in. Oh, Galadriel should be here. Galadriel should be there. Galadriel should be there. And it's like, no, there's too much Galadriel. There was a lot that's going on back then, and all this Galadriel isn't needed, okay? Galadriel's fine. Let's just leave it at that. Let's not destroy her character. She is who she is. An uptight elf who just needs to find out answers. That's fine. Okay, it happens. Don't get me started on the fact that the producers felt like cutting the hair of elves was important because they said, culture changes over time, so it would be foolish to think that a several thousand-year-old species like the elves would up and all of a sudden keep the same hair for 4,000 years. The reason why humans constantly change their culture, because the previous generation dies. So you have an entire new generation who's like, yeah, I don't like how they did things. I don't like it. I don't like what they ate. I don't like what color they liked. Yeah, it's stupid. Everything I do is better. And guess what? When that generation grows up, gets old, they die, the next generation has the exact same thoughts. It's really a miracle we're as far as we are in industrial revolution. Generational information is kind of a magical situation. In the Elvish world, in the Tolkien world, there is no generations. They may somehow produce more elves, but the older elves, they don't go away. You either die in battle or you get shipped off to the west. That's it. That's your only options as an elf. Otherwise, if you're just a lazy elf who sits around and games all day, you're going to be in your mom's basement for 4,000 years with long hair. Nobody in the Elvish society is going to be like, yeah, you know what would be cool? If I cut my hair, even though everybody doesn't do that. I mean, and you look back at other historical societies like the Mongols, cutting your hair was the equivalent of death. I mean, you can see it in things like Game of Thrones where they had the Dothraki. The Dothraki were modeled on real life Mongols from the 13th century, I believe. Look it up sometime. The history on that is phenomenal. You're going to have way more entertainment learning about what the Mongols did than the next Rings of Power season. But that brings me to the next point. Rings of Power Season 2 could potentially be a lot better than Season 1. And what I think will do this is if we have a strong development of Mordor. We don't necessarily need to see Sauron in every scene, but if they do a slow progression of Mordor, the ending scene was him staring over Mordor and like, yes, like an engineer, you know, scouting the area, plotting, like I want to build this here, I want to build that there. Oh yeah, I want to have a fantastic restaurant over here. Everyone's going to love it. It's like the entrepreneur who has all these fantasies, and then once they start developing it, there's all these logistical problems. I mean, just imagine it. Sauron goes into Mordor, builds this huge imagination, and just marred with micromanagement. That would be light years ahead for a season 2 than anything we experienced in season 1. I want to see Mordor develop. I want to see it struggle. I want to see it become something. And you can still establish that it's evil. That's fine. But there's nothing outside of Mordor that is interesting according to season 1. So, because everything, they had, I don't know, how many episodes they have? 8 episodes, and they all collapsed to just Sauron looking over Mordor. Like, what did we just sit through week after week? And we complained so much about Galadriel. I don't even feel like she's the main character by the end of it. So hopefully season 2 is a more diverse focus on different characters. This mystery wizard guy, my suspicion is more likely that he's one of the blue wizards that nobody ever talked about. And I think Gandalf would be the go-to, right? That's the one you want your audience to come in on. Everyone loves Gandalf. He's a fantastic character. You want to invite him over for dinner. You want to hang out with him. You want to go to the movies. Gandalf is fantastic. And they know that. So it's, on one hand, very likely the mystery wizard is Gandalf. And on the other hand, it's likely that they could just say, oh, it's one of the blue wizards. And I think it's more important that they go the blue wizard route because the Lord of the Rings didn't even talk about the blue wizards. They were there in historical reference, but they weren't having any screen time. They didn't really do anything that anybody knew about. So this mystery wizard would be perfect to say this is one of the blue wizards. But that might be too specific for the audience that Amazon is seeking, and it could be completely blown apart. This is more what I think season 2, the direction of it should go. And it's probably not going to go that way. They're probably gonna double down on Galadriel. The producers are like, you know what the problem of season 1 was? We didn't double down on Galadriel. Next season, doubling down everywhere. Galadriel there, here. Superimpose Galadriel everywhere. There's only one Galadriel on this screen. There should be 4. If they can avoid the Galadriel conundrum, perfect. All right. And again, Galadriel's fine, but let's give me Galadriel with a grain of salt, okay? There's so much going on in this world, more than proto-hobbits and Galadriel. Please expand on the world of Rings of Power beyond the few people that you have highlighted and just keep going. Keep introducing new characters. Make a few disappear. I don't know, I don't get paid to do this stuff, unfortunately. I could probably make a pretty damn good season 2. But that's just me. And what I compare this to is like Fear the Walking Dead, if you're familiar with that. They kind of recaptured the idea of what the zombie outbreak was first like in episode 1, 2, and 3. I actually quit watching Fear the Walking Dead because the first few episodes were really good. Like, the best part about a zombie movie is when you're seeing the struggle of modern human society collapse with this massive change. As soon as humans have changed and adapted to the zombies and they're all hiding and stabbing and killing each other, it's lost its appeal. Like, at this point, it's just a different show. There is something about watching the change itself, like the struggle. It's a very small gap. And once you get past it, you're in a completely different world. And The Walking Dead, and especially the Fear the Walking Dead, they started out strong with, this is how the world was, this is how the world is, and in between, this is what happened. But they quickly move on from this is what happened to this is how the world is, and I think that loses a lot of the magic. I mean, you can't milk it forever, but you can certainly do it for at least 10 episodes, and nobody has really accomplished that. And you quickly run out of ideas once you move past that stage. So I hope in the similar sense, but it's a hope. I'm expecting the worst. We're gonna see the change environment of Middle-earth with Mordor, like the neighbors. Like, I just got this house and there's a clear pasture with mountain views. And we've been like this for a few years. And then all of a sudden, There's a bunch of construction back there. Warehouses, buildings, commercial. It just blocks the view. Let's show the neighbors of Mordor where it's like, oh, that was such a beautiful backdrop and now it's ruined. What the fuck is going on? I would love to see characters like approach Mordor like a complaining Karen, like, hey, what's going on here? This was my backyard. There are so many dynamics we could take Rings of Power. So many characters we could introduce. Please increase diversity, okay? Thank you so much. Let me know in the comments below if you think Season 2 stands a chance, because according to Amazon, they've spent all their money and they are guaranteed 5 seasons. Can't wait to see how that turns out. Season 3 will be the end of it.